Days. Good morning, Jeffrey. How are you?
Birthday, Brock Heward.
Oh, thank you, Jeffrey. Yeah, 49. My last one in the 40s, and I'm feeling it.
You may be feeling it. You have aged exceptionally well, though. Like, you do not look even close to 50 at this point. So take pride in that.
I appreciate that. I was looking in my rearview mirror yesterday, and I think it was the way the sun was hitting. I was looking and noticing some grays.
Oh no!
Yeah, I was like, oh,
dude, I'm getting a couple too. Like, I've been the guy who, if I see one, I will yank it. But I'm getting like a couple of it was a little too many on the side to just start pulling out, and it's like, you know what? Yeah. It's bound to happen at some point. It's inevitable that we're all going to end up looking like Mike Salk.
Oh.
So it's fine.
Whoa. Easy there. Easy. Both of you guys do television. I'm not a television guy. I'm a radio guy for a reason. There's no reason
he's not talking about your gray hair. He's talking about your first pitch.
Oh, jeez. Oh, man.
Okay, so I said this to Mike last night, Brock. I did not look at the comments, because I wanted to come in with a completely unadulterated take, and I was kind of curious how it aligned with others. So here's it. May I, Mike? Do I have your permission to just walk through my thoughts on it?
By all means, Jeffrey, please do. I mean, I've always wanted to be critiqued by such a baseball mind.
He wrote the arm, Salk. He wrote a book about
He did write the arm. I feel like mine is safe after that throw.
Let's start here.
Okay.
It's a very cool privilege that you get to go do that, and it takes some gumption to go out there and throw a ball in front of thousands of people that could end up with you in a viral clip. So props to you for that. Now, you getting out there and insisting on going to the mound.
You got to understand. You got to understand the theory. You got to understand the history there, Jeff. So when this first went, I don't mean to cut you off, but when this first came up,
no, please.
The first thing is I talked to my dad, and he was like, "Whatever you do, don't go to the mound." And I was like, "Yeah, I don't want to do any. I have no interest in going to the mound." And then Brock comes on. He's like, "What are you talking about? You will embarrass our show if you don't go to the top of the mound. How dare you? I won't talk to you ever again." He's bullying me. The listeners are writing in. Maura, Lyle, everybody I know is like, "You got to go to the top of the mound. You're the worst person to exist. Like, you got to go to the mound, you wuss. Why would you embarrass us? You got to go to the top of the mound." So I was like, I really don't want to, but I didn't want, I was feeling a lot of pressure to do that.
It's understandable. And here's the thing. I actually agree that the mound is the move. I feel like if you're in front of the mound, it's just like a half first pitch. If you really want to show what you've got, go to the mound. But here's my issue. If you're going to go to the mound, you have to throw the baseball, and you didn't throw the baseball. You just avoided embarrassment. Mm-hmm. All you were doing, you were the kid who walked into class and had the ability to get an A, but you're like, nah, I'll take a C- and I'll be okay with it because at least I pass. And I don't want to go, off the side of the road, full Thelma and Louise style. Into like a ball of flames at the bottom. You didn't want to be 50 Cent. You didn't want to be Carl Lewis. You played it safe. And honestly, I think that is far more of a wuss move than throwing from 40 feet.
Jeff, thankfully,
here's the thing, Mike.
It's as if you listened to me all last week, because all those things are accurate.
Here's the thing. You're enough of an athlete where you needed to step out there, and I'm being serious when I say that. I don't imagine that you're going to be an Olympian anytime soon, but you're in shape. You're a fit guy, and the way that you threw that baseball tells me that you are capable of so much more, and you just turtled when the moment was there.
All right, so let me ask you a question. Have you done this before?
No.
You've never thrown out a first pitch?
I won't until I'm retired. I don't think
you think it's inappropriate for.
Yeah.
I understand. You're a reporter. We're in sort of different jobs. And
exactly.
That's
fine.
No, I understand that. I won't critique that. I think that makes perfect sense. First of all, thank you. I was truly touched that they asked me. I thought that was awesome. But the story was kind of like, I asked them like, hey, can I come see Saintcha pitch? And they were like, oh, sure. Also, would you throw out the first pitch? I was like, oh, okay. Like, that's unbelievable. And I didn't have a lot of time. I haven't thrown an actual baseball in forever. I didn't get to warm up. I didn't get to practice. So you're right. I didn't want to embarrass myself. If another team were to ask me to do this for a second time, the Rainiers, God forbid,
the Modesto
Mariners.
Nuts.
Yes, if I had to travel to
Arkansas
Modesto.
Travelers.
If I traveled to Modesto to throw out the first pitch for a Nuts game. Yes, the next time, Brock, I would, and Jeff, I would do a better job of throwing. But I've never really thrown off a mound. Like I'm not a pitcher throwing from the top of the mound.
Are you kind of hearing a lot of excuses too, Jeff? Are you kind of hearing that?
I'm just saying how I would handle it next time.
No. Honestly, I don't see these as excuses. I think he's making perfect logical sense. I just think when you're in that position, you got to have the confidence to go out there, and that was an unconfident man.
That's true. I was not confident at all. My kids were there. I knew that Brock was watching from afar, ready to make fun of me. I was terrified. As Tito says, the game sped up on me.
The funniest part of all of this, though, is that you did this specifically so you would avoid embarrassment, and yet you are still embarrassed.
Yeah, that's fine. No, I'm not really that embarrassed. I think I'm okay. The biggest thing I noticed, this was odd. I did not expect this. I guess the only mounds I'd ever really been on in my life were, as a kid. I was shocked that when you get to the top of a big league, or in this case, a single A mound, there's no hole in front of the rubber. Like, it's just flat. And I don't know. That didn't dawn on me that it would look that way. I don't think I'd ever seen or noticed that before.
Well, that's probably why they were asking you to avoid the mound.
Right, yeah.
It was, it was because pitchers they're like little puppies. They like digging their holes to fit themselves perfectly. And so, all of it in moments like that where it's already loaded with pressure, any little thing is like a landmine that can just screw everything up. And you are not expecting the dirt on the mound to be an impediment, and yet it was. Yeah. So as much as I am advocating for you to improve the velocity and the shape of your pitch, it also feels like you need a little bit of help in your mental game, Mike. It feels like you need to sit down with a sports psychologist.
Yes.
Yep. Maybe there was a traumatic event with dirt in your childhood that just brought back all sorts of bad memories, PTSD on the mound.
A lot of traumatic events in my childhood, as you might imagine, Jeff. All right, well then, perfect transition as you talk about sports psychologists. If there's one guy in this Mariner team, we know, because he's talked to us about it, has really been helped by sports psychology. Do you know who that is off the top of your head?
I don't actually.
Bryan Woo has told us a couple times that's really, really helped him in the minor league level as he attempted to go from like 6 innings total in college to being, an unbelievable pitcher right now. And he made a comment after his last start almost about imagining it was like as he went through the game, it was like going through video game levels where they got progressively harder, and it helped him. All of this is a long way of transitioning to ask, what is the thought about Bryan Woo nationally, and what is the likelihood that we're having legit All-Star and eventually Cy Young conversations about him, whether it's this year, next year, or soon?
I think it starts with, in terms of the national view of him, can he stay healthy? Because if Bryan Woo can stay healthy, yes, we are talking about All-Star. Yes, we are talking about Cy Young. If you go and look at what the guy's done in his career, I mean, last year, I know he threw only 120 or so innings, but it was sub-3 ERA. The command of his pitches is exceptional. I got to be honest, of the 5 Mariner starters, if you were to ask me, who would you enjoy watching the most throw a complete game? I think it would be Bryan Woo, and that's no slight to the rest of the guys. I think it's either him or Logan Gilbert, but I just really enjoy watching Woo pitch. He is so methodical, and he is so efficient, and his command is so exquisite that it's just fun to watch a pitcher who has multiple pitches that he can command pick apart a lineup. And I really enjoy it because I feel like Bryan Woo, it's funny you say this about sports psychology helping, because I feel like on the mound, he's so very in control of the game. Already, baseball is the one sport where the defense dictates what the game looks like, right? But I think Bryan Woo is fully I haven't asked him about this, and I'm going to now going forward. I think he has fully embraced the idea that he's in control. And when you're in control, man, and you have that gift that you can put a ball on a dime anywhere on the plate, then it just turns into a game of, I'm going to trick you. I'm going to fool you. I'm going to mess with your timing. And I'm going to, if this is a count that falls for a fastball, I'm going to throw you a changeup. And I think that is what has led him to this point where if we continue to get innings out of him, we're going to see him in Atlanta this summer.
10% of the way through the Major League Baseball season, the product has been
good. I don't see baseball right now as any different than at any point in the last, couple of years.
The records in the American League. I ask you that because
that's exactly where I was going. Like, the American League confounds me. I'm not sure whether I'm on the side of I love that just about every team can be a contender and can win the pennant, or I'm appalled that there are no teams that seem to be really good. Yesterday I was talking with somebody who's going to win the American League this year, and we named like 8 teams. Could it be the Yankees? Absolutely. Could it be the Blue Jays? Maybe. Could it be the Red Sox? Yeah, possibly. Could it be the Rays? Sure. Orioles? If they get a little more pitching. Tigers? Absolutely. Guardians? I would say no, but they always seem to be there. Royals? Potentially. They need a bat. Angels? I still don't think so. But they're better than I thought they were going to be. Rangers, despite what you guys saw this weekend, yeah. Mariners, yeah. Astros, sure. But are any of them capable of competing with the Dodgers? Are any of them capable of competing with the Padres? Are any of them capable of competing with the Phillies, the Mets? The National League's just a way better league at this point. And a couple days ago, I added up the records in the American League, and I think collectively they were 15 games under 500. It might be worse now. The NL is just the dominant league at this point, and that is going to make, I think, for a really interesting postseason on the AL side.
Which is such the opposite of how it was 10, 15 years ago. Remember when Jack Wilson got traded here, Brock, and we welcomed him to the major leagues from the minor leagues in Pittsburgh. It was like, that was kids playing, of course. But
so why is that? Why
Brock's
the shift?
49 years old.
Why the shift so clearly between the two leagues right now?
Well, let's look at who's spending. The New York Mets went out and spent $765 million on Juan Soto and added Clay Holmes and Frankie Montas and re-signed Pete Alonso. The Los Angeles Dodgers go out and spend more than anyone. The San Diego Padres in recent years have gone out and spent. It's just, it feels like there's been a gravitation of talent toward the National League and away from the American League. And I think that, when you're talking about 15 teams on each side, the spectrum of talent coming up from the minor leagues is going to be spread out pretty often. So then it's more about how does big league talent move, and a lot of big league talent has gone to the National League side.
Helps too that they've added the DH, I think, because before that it was hard for them to compete. I always felt they were at a disadvantage against the American League teams, and now I think they have enough hitters on their teams.
That is actually a really interesting premise that I had not considered, but I think that makes a lot of sense.
Well, let's totally redeem yourself.
Let's talk about. Thank you. I try. Let's think
you
about.
Still can't throw, but aside from that, your brain's working at least.
This is just wrong.
You totally redeemed yourself.
Just frankly rude. Let's talk about one of those DHs that's out there. JD Martinez. His name popped up a little bit last week. Greg Amsinger, I think, brought it up as a potential fit for the Mariners. What do you think JD Martinez has left? Where do you think he'll end up? And what does it cost? Could it be with the Mariners? I guess there's 4 questions in one for you.
What is it going to cost at this point? Not a whole lot. What does he have left? I mean, 2 years ago, he was awesome. Last year, he was like a league average hitter. The issue with JD Martinez is that he is just a DH only, and you know that you're not going to be getting any help on the defensive side potentially. And when you have only 26 roster spots and you're an organization like the Mariners that, you've already got a guy in Mitch Garver who's mostly resigned to DH at this point. You've got Jorge Polanco, who's not able to play in the field, or I don't know if he did yesterday, but hasn't been recently. You've got Luke Raley, who's going to take some DH at bats. You've got Donovan Solano, whose gloves not like. You got a lot of DH candidates already, and a lot of DH at bats on that team. And it's just a question of, is the difference that JD Martinez would potentially make with the Mariners substantive enough to take away those DH at bats from everyone else? When you DH Shohei Ohtani, it's like, yeah, of course. When your DH is Brent Rooker, or at least, the last couple of seasons, like, yeah, okay, well, that makes sense to put him there. But I don't know. I don't know that the fit for the Mariners is all that great right now.
Here's the only reason I ask and bring it up. I think every point you just made is 100% true. The one thing he did well last year is sort of an old school stat, but he drove in runs. He's a guy who drives in runs. He's an RBI guy. And what's been the biggest problem with this Mariner lineup, not just this year, but the last few years? Just finding ways to drive in runners in scoring position. And say what you want about JD Martinez. He's not perfect, but he drove in 70 runs in 120 games last year. Like, that sure feels like the type of thing that this lineup is, like the one biggest thing that they're missing.
And he couldn't play first base?
He hasn't played first base. And transitioning a guy who hasn't played somewhere to that job on the fly, not the easiest thing to do. I guess he could try, but if you're the Mariners, are you doing a wing and a prayer on a guy defensively at first base? And hope.
Why not? You're doing a wing and a prayer to a guy at third base and Jorge Polanco, and he's not actually playing there. You're doing wing and a prayer. You got doing a lot of defensive wings and prayers for this team.
You got a 5'6" first baseman at times, and Solano, I think the shortest in the history of the sport. So a wing and a prayer. Hey, here's another.
So here's the thing: has Solano played first base?
Yes.
Yeah.
He has been there in the past. Has Jorge Polanco played infield? Yes, he's been there in the past. And I know third base is a different position than second base, but he has played third base in his past with the Twins as well. Has JD Martinez ever been anything but a DH or an outfielder? No. Gotcha. Being on the dirt's a little different, man. Yeah. Like the scooping
Salk.
low throws
he was on that dirt,
is a skill.
Yes.
No question receiving pickoffs is a skill. So I think that sort of skill isn't quite as easy to pick up. But if there is any position that a guy's going to transition to and have it be with some semblance of ease, it would be first base.
How about another little rumbling and rumor that was going around, I believe, at the end of last week about Luis Castillo, that a major league team called on Luis Castillo because of some of their injuries to their starting arms. I think Bob Nightingale had this rumor. Did you reach out or lean into that at all? Did you find any details at all, whether or not that was a realistic possibility?
I didn't bother making a call because just logically right now it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's too early, number one, for any trades to be happening. Number two, we have no idea what George Kirby's situation is. And I think the Mariners' willingness to move any starting pitcher is going to depend almost entirely on whether they can get Kirby back, get Kirby healthy, and get Kirby being Kirby. If they can, then it makes a little more sense. Without that, though, you're hamstringing yourself. You're putting yourself in a position where you haven't seen Bryan Woo throw a full season, and that leaves you with Logan Gilbert and Bryce Miller and a big old shrug emoji with Kirby. I just don't think at this point that's particularly logical. And beyond that, most trades are not going to happen unless you get exceptional value for them until at least June. And the two big trades I can remember in the last couple of years happening before June. Luis Arraez going to the Padres last year. And while we're looking at the return right now for the Marlins, and it's not looking great, they felt like they got really good value on it. And in late May, a couple of years ago, Aroldis Chapman going to the Texas Rangers for Cole Reagans, who might be a top 5 pitcher in baseball right now.
How much do you know about Randy Arozarena?
Bit context.
I don't know. He's just a fascinating person. He's fascinating to watch. He doesn't speak a lot, so we don't know him all that well. By all accounts, he's quiet, except when he's playing, when he plays with a ton of flash and charisma and noise. And so I'm just kind of wondering who he is and what you know about him.
I mean, it's very interesting when players come from Cuba to Major League Baseball, and they've been living in this authoritarian regime, but it's sort of a privileged life inside of that because the government does tend to take care of baseball players, and yet there are a number of Cuban players who I've talked with who say when you grow up in an environment where you know that you are being spied on all the time and that the government can come in and essentially do whatever it wants without recourse, it hardens you and it makes you skeptical of things, skeptical of people. And so I've never asked Randy Arozarena that question, but I know some of his countrymen have gone through life feeling that way and are very hesitant to open up accordingly. So I think, let's put it this way. Randy Arozarena plays for Team Mexico, right? Whereas other guys who have been from Cuba will play for a Cuban national team or will go back or still have ties to there. And I think that maybe lends a little bit of insight into how he feels about the country and if he feels that way about where he grew up and where he spent the entirety of his childhood and the formative teenage years and early into his adulthood. Maybe that gives a little bit of an inkling as to why this is not a particularly demonstrative guy, aside from when he's on the field, which when ball players, some guys, they step inside of that line and turn into a completely different person.
And some step inside the lines and become a lollygager. I mean, I'll kind of just put a bow on the conversation.
I knew that
right?
was coming. I saw that one coming a mile away.
Did you really?
I didn't. I mean, that was the haterest thing I've heard all day. That was worse than anything I said. A lollygagger?
I mean, is that kind of how you would characterize the throw? Just a throw. It was kind of a lollygagger. He's kind of a lollygagger.
I would. Let's put it this way: when I was coaching my older son's teams when he was much younger, like 6 or 7 year old baseball, when I would do pop-ups in the infield and throw fly balls into the outfield, that was the trajectory on which Salk's pitch went.
You guys have one view on this. I kind of see that a different way. Whereas, look, Jurangelo Sanchez was the star that night. Yeah. He was going to be coming to that same mound a few minutes later to throw 98 mile an hour from the right side, maybe even look nastier from the left side. And I just didn't want to upstage him. I thought the thing to do was to kind of be an appetizer and allow him to be the main dish. I don't want to make him look bad.
And what's really cool is those guns, the radar guns in Everett, I've heard, are kind of cranked up, like that, 98. And Salk didn't even register. It just didn't quite register.
He's fun, though, by the way, Jeff. Watching him pitch, I swear, I know that he's a righty and that's kind of where it's going, and he throws harder from the right side. And watching high A kids try to hit a high inside 98 mile an hour fastball was like, good luck. But honestly, the stuff from the left side is almost more fun to watch. It's ridiculous. He's so good.
Yep.
Yeah. If that was an appetizer, Mike, I feel like it was a plate full of radishes.
Goodbye, Jeff. We'll talk to you next week. Thank you for that stirring analogy. We'll come right back. We got another hour to go. We'll see if we can, I don't know, find something better than my stupid athletic ability to talk about.